Welcome to week 4 of Finance of Public Education. I wanted to first start off by talking about the final budget project report that we're working on throughout the semester to turn in at the end of the semester. And we've done these first components the first couple weeks. This week, what is due is the interview that covers these different items that you've talked to the board, the superintendent and also the clerk. One thing I noticed is that there are a few people that just stated when the newspaper posting was going to happen. In this part, we actually need you to post the wording that you would have for the newspaper, indicating that there's going to be a budget hearing. Also, with the strategic planning, it was noticed that there was a lot of strategic plans out there that focused on instruction and other different areas of a district. Which are great. We just need to make sure that in those strategic plans and ideas that you're looking at specific things that are targeted towards the budget, namely the enrollment trends, the staffing, the facility upgrades that you'll be focusing on, buses, athletics, negotiations, and curriculum. So go through that and make sure that you have that updated to ensure that this is guiding you in your budgetary process for 5 in the next 10 years. That would be great. So week 4, I can't believe we're already here. People are doing great in the postings and the discussion items. Really impressed with a lot of the thoughts and ideas. Please, again, make sure that you get in early in the week, Monday, Tuesday, do some of your main postings and then start commenting with other people and make sure you're interacting regularly and using some outside sources to support some of your thoughts and ideas. So reading is in the Sorensen Goldsmith chapter 4. You'll be looking at a few different items this week that I have attached down here. For the discussion forum, you're going to post and discuss how you calculated these different items, and I'll go over those with you right now. And then some different questions from the textbooks. So make sure that you review that. So the first one, just giving you some more information about the budget, and I'm sure there's quite a few questions and frustrations about the budget. It is very convoluted, but again, if you have any questions, please let me know. I've had a few questions, be happy to help at any time. So this is the first document. It is called the Budget Overview and Worksheets. And one of the first things that you're going to be doing in the calculations this week in your Excel document is figuring out the basic entitlement. And this is where you're going to be getting that information right here on page 5. So make sure you refer back to this, read through that thoroughly for the basic entitlement. You can find a lot of the other equations through here and how to calculate that and what they mean and where they come from. Also, another attachment that is part of this week to review is the chart of accounts. Now, this isn't anything to do with the assignments this week, but it will help you in getting a foundation for the following week. And these are the main budgeted funds right here. And then it will break these out in much more detail further in this document. And as you can see, this is 46-page document. I mean, it's crazy. The funny part is that superintendents don't typically know a lot of these. They know the general fund numbers, these funds, but they don't know a lot of the specifics that you'll find through here. And clerks often make fun of us superintendents about that. I'll come back to that here in a second. The other thing that is also posted is this general revenue calculation. So this is part of your final report, and I've tried to make it as easy as possible, where this week we're going to be doing the general revenue calculations in this tab. In this tab, the transportation, that's going to be next week, and then it's all broken apart down from there. And again, we just try to make it as easy as possible so you can really get the concepts down and not focus on, learning Excel very, very well. That's a lot of what your clerk does, although a lot of districts, including my own, I've built an Excel document and become very familiar with it. Other districts also use some software programs. We use Black Mountain is probably the most common software program to help us in developing our budget and monitoring our budget. So this week for the general revenue calculations, I just showed you where the basic entitlement was at on this PDF document. It's not that one. this one. So again, make sure you become familiar with that. Average number belonging, that's also another item that is found right here, and it's something that you can, I think, pretty easily fill out, and they give some pretty good overview in the document that's included here. The per A and B entitlement. One thing, if you've downloaded this previous to today, go back and re-download it. I have included all the equations. I thought it was just going to be easier for everyone to understand and follow that instead of digging through some of the PowerPoints that we've had and some of these other state documents. So make sure that you go through these. They're not specific to your district. I've included this equation that is specific to an elementary with less than 1,000 students. If you're doing a different type of district, a K-12 district or a high school district, make sure you go in and get that equation out of the PDF document that I just showed you. Also, quality educator, the equation right here, very easy to calculate. One thing that is going to be a little bit more difficult to calculate is the at-risk student payment. So what the state does is they allocate a certain amount, and this year it's about $5.5 million, and then they spread it out throughout the state. And so you'll need to go into your submitted budget that your district has and then find it in here. For our school district, for our elementary district, this is how much we get. I wish they had a much easier way of calculating it, but this should be open to the public, this budget report that's submitted to OPI. You probably even find it on OPI, but your clerk has it. Again, come back and go find your at-risk payment. That's the only one that you'll have to really look up that you can't calculate yourself. Indian Ed for All, it's the A and B times a certain amount, about $22. Native American Indian Achievement Gap, it's the amount of Indian students times $214. Data for Achievement Gap, this is a relatively new part of the budget. It's your A and B times about $20. Instructional block grant. So these three, instructional block grant, related services grant, and disproportionate cost reimbursement, are all associated with your special ed services. So $150, about $150 times your A and B for the instructional block grant. For the related services block grant, it's about $54 times your A and B. And then just to give us a rough estimate, because this is another difficult thing to calculate, and it changes also dependent upon how many students are in need of these services throughout the state. So it's your the disproportionate cost reimbursement is calculated by taking the related services block grant and just dividing it by 2. And then for the mill value, you'll have to look up what your taxable value is. Your clerk would have that, your superintendent would have that. That's something that they monitor regularly. And you take that and times it by 0.001, and that's what comes up for your mill for your district. And we'll be talking about that later on, but that's a very, very important number. Your base budget, which I don't think a lot of districts go off just simply their base budget. But to calculate your base budget, it's 80% of your basic entitlement per A and B and these other components to figure out what your base budget is. So a district can choose, they have a window of how much they can levy. The base budget, about 80%, like I said, of all these different areas, and 100% of some of these. The maximum budget that they can do without having a vote is 100% of the basic entitlement. And what I mean by vote is a vote by the public. So a board can go the minimum amount on their base, and this is their maximum amount. And as far as I know, a lot of districts just go as much as they possibly can for the maximum amount. The reason why they wouldn't go for the maximum amount is because they don't want to have so many mills. They don't want to raise the taxes so much for their district. So, and then you'll be calculating all of those items for the total adopted budget. Again, it will probably be from your maximum budget will be the adopted budget, or maybe even somewhere in between. Some districts don't do the full amount, but most of them do. So get into your discussion forums and talk about how you've calculated these items. And again, download this item right here, the final budget, project revenue and expenditure reports, and start working on that.